All right, I thought it'd be helpful to make a video just sharing what I'm seeing throughout a day in these Nasdaq options. I've been trading them for a few weeks now, and each day I'm seeing 100% opportunity if someone's just willing to wait for it. And so we'll be going through just a simulation of the day. And before I click on play, I thought I would come up here and just talk about each one of these things that we're looking for. I have a little doctor's coat here to say that we would diagnose candlesticks along the way. The strength of them, whether they're wicky, long and strong, and then the direction of those candlesticks. And then, of course, support and resistance. If something breaks through support or resistance, that's going to be a very key indication that a move is happening. And then I'll turn on the PSAR5 throughout the video that we can just check to see at what point did this nail the move. But really I want to look at candlesticks and the EMA clouds and VWAP. And I can make a separate video sometime on what each one of these indicators are. But just for today, I thought it would be helpful just to look through and what happened in today on January 27th. It's been a volatile couple of days. So what I always do is I always let the first 15 minutes close before I make any moves or any bids. And so we'll let these first three close here. See if that one, okay. So first of all, this white line is actually the resistance from the day before. This is the high from the day before, and this is the low from the day before. And so what we should do is we should draw this line of resistance that we're seeing right away in these first 15 minutes. And this morning, I ended up getting in on a call. I think it was at $3.99 here, and then I got stopped out at like $4.04. You'll see this was not a very strong move. So it comes out here, and it's going to be hitting some resistance and dropping down. But what we also want to do is we want to look for any direction so that if the direction changes, we can actually anticipate it. So one thing to notice right away, if you look at all of our candlesticks it looks like we're around 9 o'clock. And at this point, it has some kind of support here. And you can see it's above VWAP, that's the yellow line, and the 820 clouds are showing to be bullish. So these are all bullish signals right now. Now what I want to do is see if I can, I'll draw a trend line here. And all I'm doing is just looking to get to the bottom of these wicks and just extend that line just to get a feeling of the direction that we're in right now. You can see we're at a little bit of a standstill, and I'll make our directional lines stand out a little bit. Let's see if purple sticks out. Looks like fuchsia will stick out pretty well with this background. And we're going to just see how this trend might continue. If anything, right now, the chart is calling for calls. But then you can see right here, there is a move that's occurring. So we had our trend line right here. And it wasn't a very strong trend, it was about 45 minutes to an hour. But then this move right here is a pretty strong move because it's moving underneath that previous resistance, that previous support, and now that's serving as kind of a resistance. And it's getting below VWAP, and it's also getting to a point where maybe the 820 clouds might cross. When this occurred right here, I entered some puts at $3.30. But we'll just watch this. We'll just let this play out for a little bit. You can see this is a pretty good move right here. Got below the 20-day moving average, and you can see if you're watching those clouds, they are almost crossing, and they crossed right there. Okay, so at this point right here, I was looking to sell because you could see that it found some support and a little bit of a bounce. Still very bearish on this move. So I believe what I did is I sold one and then I put a stop on the other one. But then you can see there was a bounce. Came back up, and what used to be support is now serving as a resistance. So isn't that cool? Something we saw earlier as support is now definitely serving as a resistance. I just love the way these things make sense, even though this move right here doesn't make a lot of sense that it would actually go down and come back up so fast. I think there was some news from Amazon that caused that move. And then we'll just see if this continues. If this goes above that line, then maybe calls are back in play. But right now, this is a wait and see kind of a move. We've got some indecision. So take a look at those clouds right there. You can see there's barely a cloud in there. The 8 and the 20-day moving averages are just sitting on top of each other. So I'll just let this play out a little bit. You can tell this takes patience for sure. And it keeps on hitting that previous support, which is now resistance. And now we're watching to see, is this kind of a double top right here? Is there going to be any kind of a rejection or a strong move? Right now, the right play is no play. Except for right here. This was a strong move down right here, and now puts are back in play. And what I'm going to do, I wonder if it'll let me turn on PSAR, that we can actually just see, would this have been giving us a direction here? So I just like to back test some of these, okay? You can see PSAR was really a good indication throughout the time here. I have found out it's a little bit of a delay. So when I see that something breaks down through support, I'm usually in before PSAR dots turn on. So that's why up here I've got candlesticks as something that we look at, and then support and resistance, and then the third thing is usually we see PSAR. So right up here we saw candlesticks are indecisive, definitely hitting that resistance. And as I was watching this, when this broke down, this is where I started to enter, and you can see PSAR showed up almost right at that same time. Also notice the 820. Now it is actually, the green line has broken down below the 20. The 8-day moving average is breaking down below the 20. And that is a bearish signal. That is those EMA clouds. The EMA cloud cross is, to me, one of the best indicators I've been able to see of a trend or a direction. So you can also see, though, if you're looking right here, there is support and support. So this is not a major move yet. So let's just keep watching. Right now, puts are entered. I believe these puts at this point were somewhere around $4. So I have this on Central Standard Time here, so it's about 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm just going to hold this right here to show that previous resistance and now, or is now resistance. It was support. And you can see that this is a pretty big move down. It is definitely below that 8-day moving average, and we're getting closer to noon. I'm always watching at this point in time because at noon sometimes there's an algo switch, even though this is a pretty significant move down. But you can see right here some buyers came in, so I did sell one of my contracts right here to lock in those gains. Turns out I sold too soon, because you'll see this actually breaks down even further. So we'll look here. We're getting closer to our 1 o'clock time. And then now keep your eye down here. This turquoise line is actually the previous day's support. And that actually serves as support again today. So I was out right here. And at this point, these puts had gone more than 100%. I think it was 130%. You'll see PSAR is still showing puts, and you'll also see that the clouds are still showing puts. However, when we come down and we see that this has really strong support from the day before, and it's serving as good support right now, maybe I'll just pull this up so we're not looking at those volume bars. At this point in time, I actually was out and I bought in on some calls. I thought we were going to see a bounce, but it ended up being only like a 5% gain. This was a day where if I was going to play calls, it was going to be really quick. It was going to be just a quick scalp. This right here was the major move of the day. The rest of the day, so I'll show you, we actually have a descending channel here, and I'm going to try to just get this on top of each of these wicks that we see, and we will just change the color so we can see that in some kind of a contrast. Will purple show up? White will show up, and we can make it just a little bit wider so we can see that right here. Now this is a descending channel. This is that trend that was in for a couple of hours. If it breaks above this trend, PSAR is showing that it just might, then calls are in play. And so we're just going to be watching this to see if that will break above that trend line. And at this point in time, I actually entered some calls, and then I set to sell them right here. But you'll see it never even makes it right up there. So I ended up selling down here for a small 5% gain. It's hard to know how far they will go, but that would be called a breakout. And then I suppose at this point we would call that a fake out. So that came back up, didn't like it, and then it came back down, and it's going to find our support down here. But also at this point in time, yes, you could have entered into some puts at this point when you saw a rejection. But down here, this is no place to enter puts. The risk reward at this point is not in your favor. Now, if there would be some sort of a long candle that pushed down below this, then puts would be in play. But this would be a double bottom. We might even see later on in our time here that it's a triple bottom, and that is only really a time to eye some calls. And you'll see this is in a standstill for a good remainder of the rest of the day. At this point, we have just about an hour and a half left in the day. The PSAR is calling for a sell, but just remember that stands for parabolic stop and reverse. So that's more of a momentum change. And right now, it's already at a bottom, so a momentum change is not going to be in our favor unless we can see a very long candle, as if like Jerome Powell was talking and some horrible news came out, if some catalyst popped up at this time. Now we can also see, and we'll just pause here, hopefully everyone's seeing that this is also a trend that is on the downside. And what's also interesting, if we take a look at this, is we actually have a pennant forming right here on the support from the day before. The hard thing, so if you haven't looked into pennants, pennants can be bullish, they can be bearish. It just depends on, is it going to break down out of this pennant? Is it going to break up out of it? This would technically be called a bearish pennant, because it's coming down from a downward trend, and it forms this triangle here where you can see a consolidation. So at the end of the day, I was very much eyeing puts, and I got pulled into one and had a small loss, but I was able to scalp some calls here. You can see how it's going to break out really fast. We have a descending trend line right now with our pennant. And you can see it's trying to get down below support, but it's not a confirmation below support. Look at those clouds. The 820 clouds are still red. That's the theme right now. It's a red day, it's a bear day until we see otherwise, until we see an actual change. Now right here you can see this is probably if I drew this a little bit better like this, that's a breakout, but on a bearish day, you better sell those calls pretty fast because you can see how that did not last very long at all. So what I've noticed is that if you're willing to be patient, if you're willing to really just watch these Nasdaq charts on these days, 5 minute has been my favorite time frame. If you're willing to do what people might call like naked charting, where you're able to go through and draw those lines of support and resistance. I don't do naked charting, you can see, because I'm using other indicators along the way. You might enjoy PSAR, you might enjoy the clouds, the 820 clouds, but I've definitely found for myself that 820 EMA shows the direction. VWAP also lets us know where is the sentiment for the day. It literally means volume weighted average price. So where are the buyers or sellers? And this is actually on the underside of that. So this is favoring the sellers on a day. And so you look for those moves, and 100% move is fantastic. It's amazing. And hopefully we can continue seeing those every day.